Hello? Emily, it's me, your mom, Caroline said, her voice a mixture of feigned warmth and overplayed excitement. I've missed hearing your voice, sweetheart. It wasn't easy finding a way to reach you. But here we are. How have you been? She added, her attempts at cheerfulness failing to mask her nervousness. Emily didn't respond right away. Her instincts told her to tread carefully. A new number? Who's this? She replied bluntly, keeping her tone cold and measured. Caroline sighed, impatience creeping in. Emily, really? It's me, your mother. Don't tell me you've forgotten my voice, she said, her frustration barely concealed. I know it's been a while, but I'm still your mom. Emily felt the corner of her lips twitch into a bitter smile. Of course, she recognized her mother's voice immediately. But she wasn't about to make things easy for her. After all, Caroline had left her and her siblings without so much as a backward glance. Emily wasn't going to let her waltz back in as if nothing had happened. Oh, Mom, she said flatly, I didn't expect to hear from you. You caught me off guard. I'm always careful with calls from unknown numbers. Her deliberate pause stretched the silence. She wanted her mother to feel the weight of the years she had been absent. Mom, let's be honest. Disappearing for 3 years doesn't exactly scream care or affection. You left when I was 14, and this is the first time you've reached out. I'm 17 now. You've been gone long enough to become a stranger. Caroline inhaled sharply. Emily, I understand you're upset, but you have to know it wasn't easy for me either. Back then, life was chaotic, and I felt like I had no choice but to leave. But I don't want to dwell on that now. I'm here to reconnect. Maybe we can start fresh, she said, her voice attempting to sound soothing but coming across as hollow. Emily's silence was deafening, but Caroline pressed on. Things are different now, she continued. I'm married to Richard, and he's given me a life I never imagined. I want to share that with you, Amanda and Ethan. Life with your father was fine, but let's face it, Daniel could never provide the luxuries Richard can. I deserve this happiness, Emily, and so do you. I want to make it up to all of you. Imagine finally living the life you've always wanted. Emily's jaw clenched. Her mother's audacity was almost laughable. She didn't miss a beat, painting herself as the victim and Daniel as inadequate. If anyone deserved credit, it was her father, a man who didn't complain or crumble under the pressure of raising 3 kids on his own after being blindsided by a betrayal. Daniel had taken charge, not with self-pity but with a quiet, determined strength that Emily admired deeply. She thought back to those early days. When Caroline drained their bank accounts and walked away, Daniel didn't waste time wallowing. He rolled up his sleeves and did what needed to be done. He worked tirelessly to stabilize their finances, and when Emily stepped in to help run the household, he never let her feel overburdened. Together, they had rebuilt their lives stronger and closer than ever. Caroline's words grated on Emily. The woman who caused so much chaos now wanted to take credit for offering luxuries. The very idea made her stomach churn. But Emily didn't let her anger show. Losing control wouldn't accomplish anything. Instead, she took a steady breath and reminded herself of her goal: to address her mother's behavior without burning the bridge entirely. Mom, Emily said evenly, her tone calm but firm. I appreciate you reaching out, but let's be clear. You can't erase what happened with money or fancy promises. You left, and we moved on without you. Dad made sure we were okay, even when you took everything and walked away. So before we can talk about reconnecting, maybe we need to start with some honesty. She let the words hang in the air, not to antagonize but to set the stage. Emily wasn't the naive little girl her mother had left behind. If Caroline wanted back into their lives, she would have to earn it. Emily's confidence swelled as she decided to lean into her calm yet firm approach. Between you and me, Mom, this is a significant step. I'm not saying I'm ready to forgive everything, but I'm willing to talk, Emily added, allowing just enough grace to keep the door open while maintaining her composure. Caroline, sensing a sliver of hope, tried to brighten the conversation. I've missed so much, haven't I? She asked softly. Tell me what's new with you. You sound so grown up. Are your siblings around? Emily smiled faintly, though the sentiment didn't reach her eyes. Amanda and Ethan are both here. Actually, we're all getting ready for something exciting. She paused for effect. I'll send you a photo, but don't hang up. Walking over to her mirror, Emily adjusted her lavender evening gown, its elegant fabric shimmering in the golden light of the late afternoon. Her hair, a cascade of wheat blonde perfection, was swept into an intricate updo, framed by the soft glow filtering through her window. The look was flawless, a testament to her transformation from a teenager to a confident young woman. She snapped a photo and sent it to her mother. "Check your phone. What do you think?" she asked, her tone casual yet sharp. Caroline's voice cracked slightly as she spoke, clearly overwhelmed. "Emily, you're stunning. Absolutely stunning. I can't believe how much you've grown." Her words stumbled as if trying to bridge the gap of 3 lost years. "You look so poised, so beautiful." Emily allowed herself a small, calculated laugh. "Thanks, but I'm not the only one you should see. Amanda looks just as stunning. Hold on." She made her way to her sister's room, where Amanda was carefully arranging her honey-brown hair, styled in soft waves that framed her delicate face. Her dress, though less bold than Emily's, radiated understated sophistication. Emily smiled at her sister's serene beauty and quickly grabbed her phone. "Amanda, Mom's on the phone. Let's send her a picture." "Come on, pose." Amanda groaned but complied, adjusting her posture as Emily snapped several shots. A woman in her mid-30s, Janice, a close family friend, stood nearby, her gown commanding attention with its timeless elegance. She began to step out of frame, but Emily stopped her. "Stay where you are, Janice. You're part of the family tonight." Janice hesitated but eventually smiled, joining Amanda in the shot. After a few moments, Emily reviewed the photos and sent the best one. "There," she said into the phone. "Check it out. I bet you wouldn't even recognize Amanda now. She's grown into herself beautifully." Caroline gasped audibly, her emotions threatening to spill over. "My goodness, Amanda is breathtaking." And Janice, "Wow, what a stunning group you all are." "You're right. I hardly recognize either of you. You both changed so much." Emily didn't let the moment linger too long. "Thanks, Mom. We've come a long way since you left," she said, her tone carrying just enough of an edge to remind Caroline of the past. Caroline, eager to steer the conversation back to lighter topics, asked, "But why are you all so dressed up? It's not prom, is it? What's the occasion?" Emily grinned, relishing the moment. "Even better than prom," she teased. "Remember that annual gala you always talked about? The one you said was impossible to get invited to? Well, we're heading there tonight. Dad made it happen." Caroline's silence spoke volumes. For once, she was at a loss for words. "That's incredible. I can't believe it. Your father must have really stepped up." Emily interrupted, her voice cool and sharp. "Yeah, he did. He always has." Caroline's breath hitched at the mention of the prestigious gala. "You mean the one hosted by Sedgwick and McTaggart?" "Of course, I remember. That event has always been the pinnacle of high society. Only the most influential and glamorous people in the state get invited. I used to dream of being there, dressed in the finest gown, mingling with the elite. It would have been magical." Her voice carried a wistful longing before snapping into curiosity. "Wait, you and Amanda are going? Did you land jobs as hostesses or waitstaff?" "That's amazing, honey. I'm so proud of you both." Emily rolled her eyes, her voice thick with restrained sarcasm. "No, Mom, we're not working the event. We're invited guests." "What?" Caroline's voice rose, a mix of disbelief and skepticism. "Guests? How? Why? You're serious?" Emily smirked, savoring the moment. "Not only are we invited, but we'll be sitting at the main table because Dad is the guest of honor. He's being recognized in a special ceremony tonight." She paused dramatically. "And I'm part of it, too. It's a big surprise for him." For a moment, there was only stunned silence on the line. You can't be serious," Caroline stammered. "Emily, this has to be a joke." "Why on earth would a cost control clerk," she said with disdain, "be the guest of honor at an event like that? That's not something that happens in real life." "Of course, Mom," Emily said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Amanda and I dressed like this just to prank you during your call. Very funny, right?" Her tone shifted, firm and unforgiving. Let's be realistic, Mom. A lot has changed since you left. We've grown. We've moved forward. And yes, Dad made this happen. He pulled us together after the disaster you left behind. Emily's gaze flicked to her watch. Speaking of which, we'll need to leave soon. Amanda and Ethan are getting ready, and the limo will be back to pick us up in about 15 minutes. Caroline tried to respond, but Emily cut her off. Her voice grew cold and pointed. Do you even understand what you did to us? Do you even remember the day Dad found out about you and that man in his bed? The way you packed up and vanished without so much as an apology. Emily, I didn't think you knew about that, Caroline whispered, her voice faint. I had to leave. Your dad confronted me, and it was too much. I didn't have another choice. Emily's temper flared, and her voice rose. No choice? Seriously, Mom? Let's not rewrite history. I'm the one who told Dad what was going on. Who do you think took those photos of you and that disgusting excuse for a man? Her voice sharpened, cutting through Caroline's attempts to interrupt. That day, Amanda and I came home to strange noises coming from your room. I told Amanda to wait downstairs while I went up, and there you were right in the middle of it. I snapped those photos and sent them to Dad. I wanted him to know exactly what you were doing. Caroline gasped, but Emily pressed on relentlessly. When we came back home later that evening, you were locked in your room crying. And by morning, you were gone. That's the last memory I have of my so-called caring mother. You in Dad's bed with some guy, shattering our family. Do you even realize what you did to me? To Amanda? To Ethan? We were kids, and you think Dad dragged us into this? No, Mom. You did that all on your own. Caroline tried to stammer an apology, but Emily wasn't done. I don't need your fake sympathy, and I certainly don't need your excuses. You abandoned us for your own selfishness. And somehow, you think you're the victim in all this? Spare me. Emily's voice softened, not with forgiveness, but with a calculated calm. Here's the truth, Mom. Dad didn't just survive without you, he thrived. He made sure we were okay. And now, we're stronger than ever. So don't bother pretending you're proud of us. You don't get to take credit for any of this. Her tone shifted again, firm and unwavering. We're leaving soon, so I don't have time for more of this conversation. Enjoy your life, Mom. We're doing just fine without you. Emily ended the call, her heart steady. She glanced at the clock and then at her reflection. Tonight wasn't just about the gala. It was a testament to the strength of her family, the people who stayed when it mattered most. Caroline exhaled sharply, frustration evident in her voice. Emily, this isn't the time to keep throwing darts at me. I'm trying to reconnect here. Can we avoid trading blows? After all, we both know I wouldn't stand a chance in that battle. You got a fire hose ready, and I'm stuck with a leaky squirt gun. And let's not forget what Amanda and Ethan might have to say about me. So, do you want to keep airing my mistakes, or should we actually talk? Emily was momentarily surprised by how composed she remained. It was clear how much she had grown in the years since her mother's departure. While Caroline was grasping at straws, Emily had learned to anchor herself in her own strength. On the other end of the line, Caroline was finally starting to face the gravity of her choices. If she wanted any hope of rebuilding even the smallest connection with her children, she would have to accept responsibility for her actions. No superficial gestures or occasional visits would suffice. She needed to dive deep, acknowledge the pain she caused, confront their emotions, and let their anger and resentment pour over her like a tidal wave. It was a daunting realization, but retreating now would seal her fate. If she didn't face this head-on, she risked losing them forever. Caroline's voice softened, tinged with regret. You're right, Emily. We'll have to sit down and talk through all of this someday. Really talk. I owe you that. But for now, I just want to open the door and start somewhere. This call is my first step toward fixing things. Emily sighed, hesitant to let her guard down, but willing to recount how far they had come without Caroline. Fine, she said, her voice steady but cool. Let me catch you up. Honestly, Mom, what's happened since you left is like something out of a movie. At first, things were rough, really rough. She took a deep breath and launched into the story. After you left, Dad was a mess. There were nights when Amanda and I would come home from school, and I'd tell her to wait outside while I checked the house, terrified of what I might find. Every phone call made my stomach drop, thinking it could be the police or worse. I had to tell Ethan to get his act together because his partying wasn't helping. I couldn't hold the family together alone. Caroline was silent, absorbing the weight of her daughter's words. But then, something changed in Dad, Emily continued. He started reading books on heartbreak and grief, pouring his thoughts into his computer at night. It was like he decided to rebuild himself from the ground up. And you know what? It worked. Her tone shifted, brightening slightly. He started running in the mornings, dusted off the old treadmill, and even picked up weights again. Remember how he was overweight back then? Well, now he's fit, and honestly, Mom, he looks amazing. I wouldn't blame Janice if she's got a little crush. Caroline let out a faint laugh, though it sounded hollow. I needed to hear this, Emily. Thank you for telling me. Emily wasn't about to let her mother off the hook. I'm not saying this for your sake, Mom. I'm telling you because it matters to the story of how we survived. Dad didn't just survive, he thrived. And Amanda? After what happened, she shut down for a while. She barely spoke to anyone, stayed in her shell. But now, she's thriving too. A lot of that is thanks to Janice. Caroline's curiosity piqued. Janice? She asked, glancing at the photo on her phone. She zoomed in, taking a closer look at the elegant woman who had been helping Amanda. Yeah, Janice. She's been like family to us. She helped Amanda come out of her shell. She helped all of us, really, Emily said simply. Caroline stared at the picture for a long moment, a pang of jealousy creeping in as she realized how much she had missed. She swallowed hard. She seems nice, she managed to say. Emily chuckled dryly. Nice doesn't cover it. She's been there for us in ways you weren't. And now, she's part of our lives, whether you like it or not. Caroline had no response to that. For once, she was completely at a loss for words. Caroline's silence lingered, heavy with unease. Finally, she cleared her throat. Okay, so who is this Janice you're talking about? She asked, her tone attempting to sound casual, but failing to hide her curiosity. Emily's response was direct. Oh, right, Janice. She's Dad's girlfriend, she said, her voice steady but tinged with a hint of challenge. And yes, she's gorgeous. She used to be a swimsuit model, but she still works in the industry and has been helping Amanda explore her dream of modeling. She's been nothing but sweet to all of us. Caroline's grip on the phone tightened. Wait, your father's dating a swimsuit model? And now she's pushing Amanda into that world? Modeling? Really? Her voice climbed in pitch as her indignation bubbled to the surface. How could he let her do that? How could you support that? Do you have any idea what kind of people she's dealing with? If I find out your father and this, Janet, or whatever her name is, are exploiting her for some cheap cheesecake photos, I'll bring charges against both of them. Emily closed her eyes and took a steadying breath, holding back her frustration. When she spoke again, her voice was calm and deliberate. Mom, listen carefully. Dad and Janice are extremely cautious with Amanda's career. They handle everything with professionalism. One of them is always at her shoots, and Dad ensures every photographer signs a strict contract. Not a single photo is taken without his explicit approval. And just so we're clear, Amanda hasn't even worn a swimsuit in her shoots. That's more than I can say for some people. Caroline's indignation faltered, but she tried to defend herself. Frank is only 66, not as old as you're making him out to be, she muttered, deflecting. Emily ignored the weak excuse and pressed on. If you must know, Janice is 34. That's an 11-year age gap between her and Dad. A lot less than the gap between you and Frank, if we're being honest. The jab landed, but Caroline remained silent. And about Janice? She's been amazing for Dad, Emily continued. I've never seen him this happy. She's been a huge support to him and to all of us. I'm not sure if they'll ever get married, but they make a great team. That's the reality, Mom. Like it or not. Emily let the silence stretch for a moment before switching gears. As for Amanda's modeling career, it's been a game changer for her. She's finally confident. She's discovered who she is and what she's capable of. She's even started taking charge during shoots, suggesting themes and poses. Modeling isn't just a job for her, it's her passion. Caroline sighed, reluctant to let go of her objections. I just don't know if modeling is the right path for her. She needs something more meaningful. Emily's patience wore thin, but she reeled in her temper. Mom, Amanda wasn't exactly a standout student, and she struggled with her confidence for years. Modeling has given her purpose and a future she's excited about. She's already earning enough to make you jealous. And yes, I model too, but it's not my passion, it's Amanda's dream. I'm just there to support her. Caroline hesitated, sensing the finality in Emily's tone. Well, I still don't like the idea of it, she muttered. Emily ignored her and continued. By the way, Mom, Amanda and I get to keep some of the clothes from our shoots. You wouldn't believe the wardrobe I've built. I'm one of the most stylish girls in school now. Funny how life works, huh? The girls who used to look down on me are now asking me for fashion tips. Some even want my autograph. Emily chuckled lightly, shaking her head at the thought. It's a bit surreal, but it's nice to see how far we've come. You wouldn't recognize us now, Mom. And that's not just about appearances. We've grown into ourselves without you. Caroline, still reeling from everything Emily had shared, struggled to find a response. For once, she couldn't deny the truth of her daughter's words. Emily giggled lightly, leaning back against her bed. So yeah, Mom, I'm kind of popular now, and guys are finally starting to notice me. Isn't that funny? Her tone was light, but there was a hint of satisfaction behind her words. Caroline's chest tightened as she listened. It was a mix of pride, envy, and bitter regret. She had left her family to chase recognition and success, yet it seemed her children and ex-husband had achieved it effortlessly in her absence. The irony gnawed at her. I'm happy for you, baby, Caroline said, though her voice sounded hollow. And Amanda, too. By the way, how's Josh? Is he doing okay? Emily took a deep breath, glancing at the clock. She didn't want to rush through the update, but knew Josh's part in the story needed time to be told properly. Well, Mom, surprisingly, Josh has really turned things around, she began, her voice steady but firm. He was pretty wild, even before you left, Emily continued, her words pointed. Afterward, it got worse. He drank too much, partied too hard, and basically lost control of himself. For a while, Dad put up with it, but eventually, he'd had enough. He told Josh to either get a job or go back to school. When Josh refused, Dad kicked him out. Caroline's gasp was audible over the line. What? Your idiot father threw my son out of the house? How dare he? I'll have Frank contact a lawyer and sue that scoundrel, she fumed, her voice rising with every word. Emily stifled a laugh. Good luck with that, Mom, she replied dryly. Honestly, Dad did what he had to do. You let Josh get away with everything, and it nearly ruined him. He didn't just need boundaries. He needed a reality check. Her voice softened slightly as she continued. Josh was lucky he didn't end up in serious trouble. But Mom, this was over a year and a half ago. Since then, things have changed. Josh spent some time couch hopping with friends, but even they got tired of his laziness and kicked him out. He ended up living on the streets for a while, and it woke him up. Eventually, he came back and apologized to Dad, saying he wanted to come home. And your father let him? Caroline asked sharply. Not immediately, Emily said. Dad told him he could come back only if he had a job. So, Josh found work with a roofing crew and started contributing to the household. Dad made sure he paid his share of the bills, taught him responsibility. It wasn't easy for Josh, but he adapted. Emily's tone lightened as she chuckled. You should have heard him complain about how hard his job was, but Dad didn't budge. He just said, "Welcome to the real world, son." Caroline stayed silent, clearly struggling to absorb the story. Emily pressed on, but the real turning point was when Fauna came into the picture. Fauna, Caroline interrupted, suspicion dripping from her voice. Don't tell me your father has another girlfriend. Emily burst out laughing. No, Mom, Fauna's not Dad's girlfriend. She's his personal assistant. And trust me, she's a force of nature. She's only 22, but she's sharp-tongued and doesn't tolerate nonsense. Dad jokes that she's his cool boss. They met at a conference in Minneapolis, where she walked up to him, shook his hand, and told him he needed her if he wanted real success. Dad hired her on the spot. Emily paused, a grin spreading across her face. Fauna's been amazing for Dad's career, but what's funny is that Josh fell for her immediately. She's gorgeous. Short blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and a no-nonsense attitude. But she made it clear she wasn't interested in dating someone without ambition. And that's what changed him. Caroline asked hesitantly. Exactly, Emily confirmed. Josh suddenly found all this motivation. And the big news? From months ago, he enlisted in the Air Force. He's currently at Lackland Air Force Base and will be heading to language school in Monterey, California soon. Caroline was stunned. Language school? What's he learning? Russian, Emily said simply, smirking at her mother's reaction. Caroline let out a strangled laugh of disbelief. Josh? Learning Russian? I don't even know what to say. Emily chuckled. It's wild, right? But that's where he is now. Focused, determined, and building a future for himself. Mom, we've all come so far. It's like we've become completely different people since you left. Caroline's silence lingered once more, heavy with the weight of everything she'd just heard. Emily laughed softly, the sound laced with satisfaction. So yeah, Mom, with Josh waiting for clearance at the base, Dad invited him home for tonight's party in his honor. Oh, and Fauna's been a lot gentler with him lately, even though she won't admit she's interested. But trust me, we can all see it. They're practically inseparable. Fauna isn't seeing anyone else, and she and Josh spend hours on the phone whenever they can. Caroline scoffed. So what? He thinks playing house with his father's assistant is going to change anything. Emily grinned, undeterred by her mother's skepticism. It's more than that, Mom. Fauna's presence has given Josh purpose. He's smitten with her, sure, but it's her high standards that have really pushed him. Get this, he's planning to finish language school, go to college, and become an officer in the Air Force. Can you believe it? My wild, carefree brother is turning into a military officer. If you'd told me this 2 years ago, I'd have called it a joke. She kicked off her heels, gesturing animatedly as she spoke. Love really does make you do crazy things, doesn't it, Mom? Emily added, laughing lightly. Before Caroline could respond, a deep baritone voice rang out in the background, singing a familiar tune. To dream the impossible dream. Emily burst into laughter, leaping off the bed. Mom, you've got to hear this, she exclaimed, extending the phone toward the hallway. The song was soon accompanied by playful wolf howls and giggles from Amanda and Fauna, followed by Rachel's infectious laughter. Emily's father, Daniel, chimed in mock indignantly. No respect in my own family. I've had it. You're all off my Christmas list. A chorus of, "We love you, Daddy," echoed back, accompanied by reassuring laughter. Emily returned to the phone, still grinning. Dad's a riot, Mom. He sings when he's happy or nervous, and we love egging him on. It's our little tradition. Caroline couldn't bring herself to say anything. Deep down, she had hoped they were still struggling without her, but seeing how they thrived only left her more stunned and adrift. Emily broke the silence, her voice filled with excitement. Mom, Dad doesn't know he's the guest of honor tonight, but he's already a little nervous. He and Jack McTaggart are playing a couple of guitar duets with the band. You know how Dad is with his blues guitar. Since he and Jack became buddies, they've been jamming almost every week. Tonight's their first public gig. Can you imagine Dad in a tux, rocking out on stage? Caroline's gasp was audible. Wait, what? Did you say Jack McTaggart? The Jack McTaggart? How is your father friends with someone like him? Emily smiled slyly, sensing her mother's disbelief. That's right, Mom. Jack McTaggart. Or just Jack, as his friends call him. Friends? Caroline repeated, struggling to process the information. Yep, Emily confirmed. It all started when Dad wrote a few articles about surviving heartbreak. Like what happens when your cheating spouse leaves you for someone else. Her voice carried a deliberate sharpness, but she quickly moved on. Some smaller magazines picked up his work, and Dad was thrilled. Then Jack read one of his articles and reached out. He asked Dad to give a motivational speech at a McTaggart Corporation employee event. Dad was floored, but he prepared a talk based on his articles and delivered it. It was a hit. Emily paused for dramatic effect. Jack was so impressed that he invited Dad to speak at the company's annual shareholders meeting. After that, the offers started pouring in. Dad's now an in-demand speaker, Mom, and Jack's been a huge supporter from the start. Caroline sat in stunned silence, trying to reconcile this version of her ex-husband, a man she had once dismissed as mundane, with the confident, accomplished figure Emily described. And get this, Emily continued, her voice gleaming with pride. Jack insists we call him by his first name. No formalities. He's honestly so down-to-earth, which is probably why he and Dad get along so well. They're practically best friends now. Caroline finally found her voice, though it wavered. I can't believe this. Your father? Giving speeches? And Jack McTaggart? This is unbelievable. Emily chuckled. Believe it, Mom. It's our life now. And tonight, you're going to miss seeing Dad in a tux, jamming with Jack on stage. Too bad, huh? Her words hung in the air, a mixture of teasing and finality, leaving Caroline grappling with the reality of the family she had left behind. Emily took a breath, settling back on her bed. After that, everything fell into place for Dad, she continued. He started writing more articles, and they got picked up by bigger, more prestigious magazines. Eventually, he quit his old job to focus full-time on writing and speaking engagements. Jack kept introducing him to important people, and before long, they were hanging out regularly. Turns out, they both love blues and rock guitar, and that shared passion made them even closer. They've been great friends ever since. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in for Caroline. Caroline's voice came through the line, tinged with disbelief. Your father a writer? An author? Published in magazines? She let out a shaky laugh. I can't believe this. My ex-husband, the man who could barely manage his career before, is suddenly successful. What's next? A best-selling book. Emily smirked, amused by her mother's astonishment. Before she could reply, the sound of muffled chatter drifted up from the first floor. A deep male voice mingled with softer female tones, signaling the arrival of new guests. Emily glanced down the hall and saw Janice leaving Rachel's room to greet the arrivals. Mom, Emily said, her tone shifting as she remembered something important. I'll have to go soon. Jack and Mona McTaggart are already here, along with photographers for the event. They're doing that annual photo album thing, you know? The one where they capture all the enchanted moments of the evening. Personally, I think it's a little over the top, catering to everyone's vanity. But the sales raise a lot of money for charity, so it's hard to argue with the results. Caroline's tone perked up, suddenly defensive. Oh, Emily, don't underestimate how special it is to be featured in that album. It's an honor. You and Amanda should be thrilled to have your photos included. This is a historic event, and you'll be seated at the main table. Your pictures will probably be on nearly every page. Emily chuckled softly, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Well, good to know you'll be proud, Mom. Sounds like you'll be buying a few copies this year to show off to your friends. Caroline didn't deny it. Of course. I bought one almost every year. This time, I'll be proud to point out my children, Joshua and Amanda. Imagine that. Her voice softened. I'm proud of you all, Emily. Truly. Emily sighed, the compliment landing somewhere between genuine and hollow. Thanks, Mom. Speaking of, Dad's planning a trip to New York for a writing event over Labor Day weekend. Rachel, Janice, Fauna, and I were planning to go with him. Maybe we could stop by and see you while we're there. Caroline's voice brightened instantly. That's a wonderful idea. I'd love to see you and Amanda. As for your father and his girlfriend, well, I'm not sure it would be a good idea. There's been too much pain on both sides. Emily rolled her eyes. Right? Pain you caused, but let's not get into that. If you want to meet, we'll all come together. That's the deal. Caroline hesitated, but then said, I suppose I'd like you to meet Frank as well. After all, he's your stepfather now. Emily made a face, pretending to gag as she spoke. Ugh, Mom, I still have nightmares about you and Frank. So yeah, the only way this happens is if Dad and Janice are there too. Non negociable. Her mother's faint laugh didn't mask the awkwardness of the moment, and Emily's smirk widened. Anyway, I've got to get ready. Enjoy your evening, Mom. I'll tell everyone you said hi. She hung up before Caroline could reply, her focus already shifting to the evening ahead. Tonight wasn't about the past. It was about celebrating how far they had come, together. Caroline gritted her teeth, suppressing the irritation she felt from Emily's dismissive tone. That's only fair, she muttered, feigning calmness. Deep down, the idea of facing Ed, Janice, and her children together unsettled her. Still, she needed to maintain the illusion of enthusiasm. Let's see how things unfold, Emily. The most important thing is reuniting as a family. I can't wait to see you and Amanda again. To hug you both. That's what matters. Sure, Mom. Emily replied absent-mindedly, her attention already drifting back to preparations for the evening. Caroline forced herself to sound upbeat. By the way, Frank and I will be attending the New York Literary Guild's Meet the Books Day over Labor Day weekend. Frank's using his connections to secure tickets, and I'll push him to get enough for all of us. It's shaping up to be an incredible event. Imagine it, Emily, meeting renowned authors, getting books signed, and mingling with the literary elite. You should see how excited Frank is. Emily's eyebrows shot up in amusement. Is that so? Frank's suddenly a literary enthusiast? Absolutely, Caroline replied eagerly, ignoring the subtle sarcasm. He's particularly thrilled about David Voles attending. He swears by his debut book, says it's sensational. Have you read it? Emily couldn't help herself. Actually, yes, I have. I met him several times, too. His work is brilliant, thought-provoking, and beautifully written. How about you, Mom? Have you read it? Caught off guard, Caroline hesitated. Well, no, she admitted reluctantly. It's not really my style, but Frank's a big fan. Emily stifled a laugh. Of course he is, she said dryly. Then, struck by a thought, she added, Hey, Mom, do you have a copy of the book handy? Hardcover or paperback? Yes, there's a hardcover copy on Frank's desk. Why? Caroline asked, already moving toward the office. Perfect. Open it up and look at the back and side flap of the dust jacket. Let me know what you see. Caroline picked up the book, flipping it open as instructed. Her eyes landed on the author photo, and her heart nearly stopped. Oh my goodness, she whispered. This can't be. Emily, this is a photo of Ed, your father. How is this possible? Emily burst into uncontrollable laughter, her voice shaking as she gasped for air. Oh, it's possible, Mom. David Voles is Dad. When he started writing, he used a pseudonym to separate his professional life from his personal one. So yeah, your new husband's favorite author is my dad, your ex-husband. Isn't that hilarious? Caroline sank into a chair, her face pale. This has to be some kind of joke. Emily, still laughing, wiped tears from her eyes. No joke, Mom. You've been gushing about Dad's book this whole time, and Frank? He's practically his biggest fan. This is gold. I can't even process how funny this is. Caroline was silent, staring blankly at the book. Finally, she muttered crap. Emily, still chuckling, glanced at the clock. I got to go, Mom. I'll email you my contact info so we can coordinate for Labor Day. I'm glad you called. I really do want to see you. Love you, Mom. She hesitated, then added with a grin, Phew, this is still too funny. Caroline's voice sounded strained. Tell your brother and sister I said hi. And give them my number so they can call me. I love you too, Emily. Will do. Bye, Mom, Emily said before hanging up. She went downstairs, still giggling, her mood buoyant. She adjusted her gown in the mirror, preparing for the photographers and the evening's events. Her dazzling smile would dazzle even more tonight, knowing the ironic twist her family's story had taken. Back in the office, Caroline continued to sit in stunned silence, staring at the book. The message was clear. Karma had come full circle. She hadn't fully recovered from the call when Frank burst into the room, practically glowing with excitement. Linda, you won't believe this, he exclaimed. I wrote to David Voles, telling him how much I admired his book, and he wrote back, by hand. Can you imagine? Frank held up the card, reading it aloud with pride. Dear Frank, you have no idea how glad I am that you enjoyed my first novel. Although you may not know it, you provided a very positive influence on my life and career. I don't know if I can ever thank you enough for this, so I look forward to expressing my gratitude in person. You've lifted a huge weight off my shoulders and given me a much-needed spark for personal growth. Best wishes, David Voles. Frank looked up beaming. Isn't that amazing? I must have met him before. His picture looks so familiar. I can't wait to meet him in person. Maybe we'll even become friends. As Frank's ecstatic babbling filled the room, Caroline's head spun. Each word felt like a blow, sinking her further into despair. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. In a creaky, exhausted voice, she managed to rasp, "Shut up, Frank. Just shut up."